Welcome to the Year 10 English Subject Selection presentation. My name is Eve Hassel. I'm the Head of English at CHAC. In Semester 1, all students in Year 10 study Year 10 English, or 10ENG1. This course follows seamlessly from Year 9 English. The Year 10 English support class continues to operate. Semester 1 is the end of our junior English course at CHAC. It's in Semester 2 when things become a little different. In Semester 2, students have the opportunity to study either Introduction to Senior English, Introduction to Literature, or Introduction to Essential English. Alternatively, they could choose to study both Introduction to Senior English and Introduction to Literature. Students must study one of the above subjects. Please know, in Semester 2, the English support class will no longer operate. This is essentially replaced by Essential English. One more thing to note is that student achievement in Term 4 of Semester 2 in both Introduction to Senior English and Introduction to Literature will also contribute to the student's result in Year 11 Unit 1 of those subjects. Before you make a decision about whether you should study Intro to English, Literature, or Essential English, you really need to have a little bit more of an understanding of the differences between the three subjects. Firstly, Intro to English follows seamlessly from Junior English, preparing students for Senior English in Year 11 and 12. Intro to Literature prepares students for Literature in Year 11 and 12, while Intro to Essential English prepares students for Essential English in Years 11 and 12. However, the texts that are studied in each subject vary somewhat. In English, students study both literary and non-literary texts. In Literature, the focus is on literary texts only, while in Essential English, students study a range of contemporary and work-related literary and non-literary texts. The assessment undertaken in each subject is also different. In English, students continue to study analytical, persuasive, and imaginative genres, and this follows pretty much the same from what they've been doing in Years 7 to 10. In Intro to Literature, students only complete analytical and imaginative assessment tasks. Meanwhile, in Intro to Essential English, students complete texts that have a range of genres. These can be informative, opinionative, instructional, imaginative, reflective, persuasive, and imaginative. Often tasks look at a couple of different genres. All three subjects assess in both written and spoken modes. You would have noticed the use of the terms literary texts and non-literary texts in all three subject explanations. You really need to understand the difference between these texts before you make a choice between the two subjects. Literary texts are studied in English, Literature, and Essential English. Literary texts include those texts from the past and present from a range of cultural backgrounds. They are valued for their form and style and are recognised as having enduring and artistic values. These include novels, poetry, short stories, plays, fiction, non-fiction, such as autobiographies and biographies, and multimodal texts, such as film. However, in literature, students only study literary texts. In English and Essential English, students also study non-literary texts. Non-literary texts are those texts that are contemporary, traditional, and everyday texts that use language to explain, interpret, analyse, argue, give opinions, remember, recall, report, transact and negotiate relationships, goods and services, and include media, multimedia, such as news, current affairs, blogs and vlogs, advertising, feature articles, editorials, and TV programs. It's now time to look at the courses of each subject in a little more detail. Firstly, Introduction to Senior English. This subject aims to develop students' understanding of the power of language through an investigation of the impact of both fiction and non-fiction texts, if you like, literary and non-literary texts. Students will initially analyse a contemporary novel and convey their understanding of the author's style and text through the creation of an imaginative response. For assessment, they'll write an additional chapter or excerpt for this scene, completed as a scene exam. They will then study a documentary film and present a persuasive speech in role as a relevant stakeholder to reflect their understanding. So for assessment, they are doing an oral presentation, which is a persuasive speech. In the subject Introduction to Senior Literature, the subject aims to provide students with a general overview of the historical development of literature over time, from the ancient world through to the 21st century, with a focus on the Romantic, Victorian and modern periods. Students will consider how texts are a product of the time in which they are created and explore the intertextual relationships between texts. Students will engage with a range of texts including poetry, short stories, films and plays, as well as studying both a classic and a contemporary novel. They will also complete an analytical response to their choice of texts and a spoken multimodal imaginative response to their novel study. This means for assessment, they will first complete an analytical essay and secondly, a multimodal spoken imaginative presentation, either in pairs, individually, or in small groups. Finally, Introduction to Senior Essential English aims to develop students' understanding of language through an investigation of the impact of narrative print and multimedia texts. Students will initially analyse a young adult or popular fiction novel and convey their understanding of the author's style and text through the creation of a series of emails or letters. Here they will do a written scene imaginative exam, either a series of letters or emails. They will then study a film and present a persuasive spoken review to reflect their understanding. Again, this is their assessment task, a persuasive, opinionative film review. On this slide, we can see the differences between the three senior English subjects. Firstly, looking at the texts. In English, students focus on both literary and non-literary texts. In literature, the focus is only on literary texts, whereas in Essential English, students examine contemporary and work-related literary and non-literary texts. Considering assessment, in English, students do analytical, persuasive, imaginative, and text for a public audience. In literature, the focus is more narrow. They only complete analytical and imaginative assessment genres. And in Essential English, there is a wider range once again, with students doing types of work that are informative, opinionative, instructional, imaginative, reflective, and persuasive. Looking at assessment modes, in all three subjects, students complete both written and spoken multimodal assessment. Where do we go with these subjects? English prepares students for all tertiary courses, and similarly, literature prepares students for all tertiary courses. However, Essential English prepares students more specifically for those who are wanting to go directly into the workforce or to TAFE or into a vocational course. It also prepares students for some tertiary courses. You need to talk to Mrs. Cummins more closely to find out exactly which courses Essential English prepares you for. Students, to help you get your head around the idea of the differences between these three subjects, I thought we'd talk about your Year 9 course that you've just coming towards completing. First up, you did the What's News unit. Here you studied print news. These were non-literary texts, and you wrote an editorial, which is a text for a public audience. Because you studied both non-literary texts and you wrote a text for a public audience, this was preparing you for senior English. You then went on to look at poetry. Poetry is a literary text, and your assessment task was an imaginative response. That unit prepared you for both the work studied in English and literature. You then went on to study drama, and you looked at a play in detail. Drama scripts are a literary text. So here again, you studied the play and you wrote an imaginative response. This relates very closely to both English and literature. It prepares you to both. Those of you who decided to do a monologue as your assessment task, you are actually preparing for senior literature, because it's in senior literature where you do spoken imaginative assessment. You all then completed a novel study. A novel is a literary text. You wrote an analytical essay. An analytical essay in response to literature is a key component of both senior English and senior literature. In fact, the external exam for both subjects involves an analytical response to a literary text. Finally, at the end of the year, you will complete a wide reading unit. While you're responding to a literary text here, your assessment task is a persuasive speech. So here, again, you are preparing for senior English as you do persuasive speaking in senior English. So think about these different assessment tasks. Where do your strengths and weaknesses lie? Which do you like more and which aren't you quite as passionate about? That should help to give you an indication of the subject that you should be studying or the subjects that you should be studying next year. So, finally, next year in English, in semester 1, you're all going to continue to study English, but in semester 2, you have a choice between Introduction to Senior English, Introduction to Literature, or Introduction to Essential English. Or if you're really keen, you could do both Introduction to English and Introduction to Literature. The choice is up to you. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to ask your English teachers or send me an email or phone me or pop in to see me in D101. Thanks a lot. Bye.